right. All right, sjokz, welcome to the HLTV Awards.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. My first time, your first time.
Yeah.
The actual awards night is tonight, but coming into here, being surrounded with CS talent and the general atmosphere, what's it been like so far?
It's incredible. I wanted to come to the HLTV Awards ever since you guys started organizing them, but I always had work in the way. And believe me, I definitely was like, I really wanted to go, and I'm really happy. I got here last night. I think everybody or most people were already here, and just the atmosphere of everybody kind of celebrating each other's successes, kind of also tapping each other on the back or on the shoulder of like, hey, we did this year, this was cool, this was awesome, let's get another year going. I think it's very necessary for a community, so I'm really happy that I get to be there.
It's something that you've kind of done as well, like you have the League of Legends Awards or League Awards. Can you tell me about coming here? I know the award show hasn't happened itself yet, but with your organizational background in that and what you see when you come to a CS event.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. The HLTV Awards is exactly what we looked at as our example as to where we would want to start and where we would want to grow as to, how big the event has gotten now. And I talked a lot to Prof to that regard as well, who basically said at our first meeting, oh, you don't know what you're in for. And I was like, oh, great. But he helped me a lot. And we did a really, I guess, small show for the first time, but we really took a look at how HLTV ran everything because it is unique and awesome in the space for us. And we're hoping to grow. So I'm looking tonight, okay, I'm also going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to talk to a lot of people, how does this work? What do you pull off? What do I need to think about that I'm not usually thinking about, or that I definitely didn't think about with our first awards? But yeah, it's kind of work and a lot of fun. Yeah.
On that note, your background is in League. You are a regular host of a lot of League of Legends events. You've worked a good number of CS events now, but I wouldn't say you're quite a mainstay. Is that something that you're looking to get more into? And how's it been coming into the CS space in terms of being a talent member?
Well, ever since I came into the CS space, I eventually ended up going freelance because I felt like I wanted to try more things, work with different production crews, get to cover different esports and different sports. And being from an FPS background myself, I've always looked up to CS. I think as a spectator esport, it's, of course, League is up there for me, but it's incredible. Like, it's unbelievable. So I really wanted to get a chance to cover that. And people have been very welcoming from the beginning, I have to say. And every time now that I finish a CS event, I just want to do more. It really is the case because of the atmosphere, how collaborative it is, how exciting it is when you get to be, not even in the arena, but even when you get to be in the studio settings and the teams are across from each other and it's all in that one round and it can all turn on a dime. It's like there is nothing like it. And I've been very fortunate to be able to come step into the space because I can understand that some people might say like, she's not completely dedicated all the time. And I would understand that if anyone says that. And that's why when I do come into an event, I do my very best to be as informed as I can be. I mean, I watch almost everything as it is, but, make sure that all my HLTV tabs are open, that I've read everything, that I've talked to the analysts and everyone, and that I am clued in and prepared, and that I come in with an open mind of things that I can learn as well from the scene. And that's been really awesome. So I hope it's nice for me to get to come in for some events and get to kind of, show what I like to do or how I like to work and how I like to weave stories. But I would never like to be, want people to think like, oh, she's just picking up a paycheck by coming here. So it's definitely not the case.
For people in the CS space, they might not know much about your background. Can you expand a little on what you mean by your FPS background and that kind of nature, as well as kind of, I guess, your background in League, because you are very well known there?
Yeah, it's true. Well, in my teenage years, which is a very long time ago, I played Unreal Tournament, and my partner always gets mad at me when I say that I was like semi-professional, because it was as professional as it gets 20 years ago, which is we went to LAN parties, we played there, we played finals, we got trophies, well, not trophies, we got I think a headset or something. So I always loved FPSs, and then when I got out of college, I studied history. I have a master's in history and a master's in journalism, and I wanted to go into sports journalism. But I found that very daunting in my early 20s. So I decided to put my skills to use, but in covering esports. And eventually, someone I used to play Unreal Tournament with said, hey, there's this game called League of Legends. And I was like, oh, MOBA. I've never played a MOBA before. I don't know if I like this. But I did, mostly because I got to play with all my friends. And then I saw the scene that already existed, you know, with the tournaments in Germany that ESL used to host. And I thought, let me write articles about that and let me shoot interviews about that and edit them. And that sounds a lot of fun. And that's how everything got going. It's 12 years ago now. So I was very lucky in a way that I was in the right place at the right time, and that I was able to grow with League of Legends esports as it grew. And I'm very thankful for that.
Reflecting on that background a bit, in esports in general, you don't have too many people with, you know, whether it be university degrees or just like big backgrounds in, for example, journalism, like you said, coming into esports with that, and as you said, it was a bit daunting to go into regular sports. What was that like, and how did your experience with that play into your early days? Yeah,
that's a great question, because I did written journalism and I ended up doing obviously video or being on-air talent, which is something that I, you know, if you told 22-year-old me that would be a no-go, because I was very, very uncomfortable, but you learn everything, you know? So when I got straight out of my master's for journalism, it was really cool for me to write. And, you know, you do find that you're in an environment, I ended up being editor-in-chief at SK Gaming, and you do understand that you're in an environment where not everybody got this formal education, and it helped me a lot in terms of the pillars of research and objectivity and the way to structure a story or a report about anything, and making sure that the truth always comes, you know, first and foremost, but also making it interesting to read, which I don't have to tell you, of course. And it was nice for me to then be able to guide other people who haven't necessarily gotten that education, but still knocked it out of the park. And I think this is one of the things that I find so cool about esports and about the environment that we're in. Yes, I happen to have a journalism degree. You don't have to anymore if you're able to, or willing, I should say, to put in the work and to learn, etc. Obviously, I don't think anyone should do anything, right? Obviously, there should be pillars of professionalism and everything you do. But I think there's so many opportunities, and I think it flows through in how I talk to a lot of parents of teenagers that maybe write to me and say, I'm a little worried about my daughter because you know, she really likes gaming, and is there anything in that for her? And then I say, yeah, of course there is. You know, it might not be a pro gamer, but maybe she wants to be a graphic designer, or maybe she wants to be an editor or a sound designer or a journalist in that field. Just approach it from that way, as opposed to the way of she's just on the PC a lot, right? Because that's where I came from as well, and it turned out pretty good. So I try to make people see that in a way. Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that background as a woman in esports and being able to, you know, help elevate and try and bring more people into the space like that? Yeah,
it's I mean, it's really awesome to see that. I mean, it's not awesome that I was one of the only women when I started, but it's awesome to see that, you know, when I look around me in every single facet of the business, be it in front of the camera or behind, there's many, many more women. And I don't, sometimes people say you're like a role model or something. I think that's a very, very scary thing, because I'm a very imperfect person, and a lot of what you see is, you know,
we all are.
I'm not like that, you know. It's, you see me in the best light with the best makeup doing my professional job. It's very different from men. I'm a mess. We all are, I think. But it is really cool that I get to talk to, you know, women, but anyone in general who wants to get started in esports that can say, hey, I didn't know where to start, and because of you, I tried it, and now I'm doing this or that. And that's really cool. I think as talent, or as anyone who is even just a little bit known in the community, to be able to do that, I think that is the greatest gift.
We have a lot of established talent in CS that have been around for quite a long time. For when you initially came in and started doing a couple of CS events, what were some of the differences? What was the adjustment like for you initially?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think the talent pool in CS is insane. Also, a lot of people that, because of the experience, you do get just better with the years. It is just the truth. I mean, as long as you keep, you know, if you're willing to keep challenging yourself, because, you know, it is also a danger in like, oh, I've done this for so long, what else can I learn? I think that's a very big mistake I see a lot of people make. But yeah, it was crazy, because I think they were all super, super nice and super welcoming, but there was this kind of like that's the League of Legends girl. Like that's how they do everything so nicely over there with teleprompters and everything's, you know, packaged up. And here we swear. Yeah. Like in a like it wasn't in a standoffish way, you know, it wasn't. And I would always be like, yeah, it's me. It's like, don't say shit around me or I'll have a nervous breakdown. And it's like, but regardless, when we got past the joking, and I mean, we still joke about that. We had a really good working relationship because it turned out that, you know, teaching each other things is awesome. For instance, working with Banks as a sideline reporter, he, you know, has been through kind of everything, being on stage and doing interviews with everybody. And I have, but in a different way, where in a lot of ways, you know, I wrote a lot of my own scripts and then delivered them to camera in a kind of more dramatic way. So I got to learn from him how he approached all the sideline interviews and how to best set it up if it's like, you know, in maybe a loser interview and how to best approach and all that stuff. And then on the other hand, we got to work together. I was like, okay, this is how I usually write these things if they ask you to write something. And then he got into that and he got really good at it. And it's like, I think it's a wonderful example of how, you know, we can learn from each other if we're open to each other. But it was such a kick for me coming into this, because I was shit scared. I was like, oh no. But I've, you know, some of my best work friends are in CS. You know, Janko always gives me a hard time, but I always know if I did something and I need a little feedback, he's just gonna say it to me straight. And I appreciate that phenomenally in CS talent. Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise or adjustment when you first came in? Is there something that kind of threw you off at all?
I mean, people like to party in CS. I wouldn't say that threw me off. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be done and it all goes very, very fast, you know. In League, you do get a whole 40-minute game and you really get to kind of, you see the story of the game build up, and then yes, it can also turn on a dime, but it's still kind of more manageable, I feel like, whereas at some of these shows, CS, especially, I think it's still the case, especially a couple of years ago, where it was like, oh, here's a 14-hour day with dual streams and 8 best of ones on each, and we got to know everything about it. And I think my brain had to be rerouted because so much happens in the cosmos of a single round, in a single phase of a single round in CS, which I think is a lot, you know, because you're constantly debating what is the most important thing what story do we need to tell out of this game, and how do we do that? Plus, you know, there's so many people who play so much CS, they might be really interested to know what happened in round 2 in that moment and in that flank with that smoke setup. But is that really something we have time to talk about? You know, the constant struggle. And I thought, yeah, that was really challenging, but really cool to do.
Especially with those 8 best of 1 days, it's hard to get into the minutia sometimes.
You get like into the second phase and you're like, okay, this team played, I know. 9 hours ago, I know. And then that's where HLTV comes in, of course. Yeah.
Of course. When you came in, I think initially you did a couple of hosting, secondary stream hosting roles. Recently, you've done a couple more sideline things. Yeah. What's it been like between shifting between those? Because in League, you're predominantly a host.
Yes, I'm predominantly desk in League now. And I've been wanting to do more interviews because I think, you know, it's sometimes very hard to make a moment absolutely stand out on the desk. And I think this is something that we in the world of co-streamers are all grappling with. Like, how can we make that not anymore maybe the traditional setup of the talking heads, but something that really taps into what our audience wants to see and how you get that emotion. I think you get that so much more frequently, obviously, in interviews. And that's also kind of a something that I wanted to relearn, because it is a skill, a very people-to-people based, you know, emotional feeling skill. So I wanted to do that. So even though I really love doing the desk, because there's something so cool about being on that desk, and you are the person that welcomes people and that guides them through this awesome day that's ahead of them. I think that's awesome. It's a big responsibility, but it's awesome. And then I feel like when I come into CS events, I'm not going to come in and be like, I'm only coming if I'm doing the desk. Like, anything you want me to do, I'll do it. Like, you know, I'll try it. So I got to do a lot of sideline, and sideline in the beginning, that was sink or swim. I mean, at IEM events, you know, you get there really early, you're shooting these pre-things, then you're going for all of the games of the entire day, and it's intense, but I did have to grapple with that a little bit, like keeping that presence of mind the entire day, what is important here, what isn't, keeping sure that you stay positive throughout, because I always think, in interviews, it's not about you, it's about the person you're interviewing. And even if you're having a bad day or you're feeling emotional in that moment, it's not the time nor place, usually. So damn, I'm rambling, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Is there one that you found more difficult between the two? Because especially when you come into a new space, I can imagine doing sideline is really hard, right?
It was so hard because, there's all these players that I see on screen. And then there's also a lot that I really don't know of, right? Because I've come into some events when we had the play-in stages or when we had the RMRs that I really had to study. And then still sometimes you see someone in real life and you're like, oh, this team, but is that the IGL? Like, I don't put the face with the role, like, you know what I mean? And that was hard in the beginning. So there was a lot of studying involved for sure. And then also a lot of, hey, I'm this person, you've never seen me before, and I'm just about to annoy you in your loser interview, or that was intense because it's also, there's no time for anything. It's like you get in there, we're doing, our first teams are here, pre-interview with these and these, let's go. And where in league, I can really fall back on 12 years of history of these teams and of these players, you can see the context, like the Matrix. And then when I came into CS, it was like I only saw this small part of this huge scene with this huge history that I wanted to be respectful to, because, I guess I was really afraid to make mistakes and then forever be pinned as, that, reporter that just came in and then didn't even know who this person was. Like, that's my worst nightmare. So I think I owe it to everybody to put in the work. I'm not saying I definitely also made mistakes. Sometimes it's like, James, who is this guy again? And James would be like, yeah, you should ask this type of questions and not these because they don't react as well to these and they give you better answers. I'm like, okay, thank you, let's go. But now at least I feel like whenever I come to a CS event that I'm a lot more clued into everything. I consume so much content also. Like all the wonderful documentaries that have come out is one, but also just talking and seeing the history. And every time team gets to playoffs, you look into all the other playoffs they've been to, and I feel like it's more settled in my brain now. So that's more comfortable than in the beginning. And I think for some of the events, I took like 2 weeks off and I just studied for 2 weeks or something, and I had like a 100-page Google Doc. But you learn by doing, know.
You were also kind of thrown into the deep end because some of the first events you worked were majors or big top tier events.
Yeah.
It's a hard adjustment period as well.
Oh, it was. Back in 2019, I got to do some Blast as well, which was more studio focused. So that was good. And then I really didn't do anything for a while. And then in 2022, it was the major in Antwerp.
Yep.
I feel so lucky because I always wanted to do things in CS. But as I said before, I don't deserve a spot here amongst all these this amazing talent, right? But if there is ever a chance, I will gladly take it and I will gladly tell the stories. And I think I got really lucky that it was in Belgium and that I'm one of the very few on-air talent that is Belgian. And that PGL said, hey, do you want to do this? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And then I got thrown into the RMRs in Romania, and that was so much information. Yeah. And also the weight of, a major. I think in a play-in round of maybe a Blast, it's very, very important, but there is nothing like the major, especially in the RMRs, because they're in CS, I don't know how everything's going to evolve, but you had the opportunity to see teams that just grinded it out for years with no true financial backing and just made it into the RMRs and could make it to the big stages. And I think that's crazy. And it's a lot of pressure, I feel like, on us as talent to tell their stories, the way we would tell the Navi story, even though it's harder because you don't know as much about these guys yet, and to, carry the weight of their journey, It's cool. It's really cool. It was really dope.
It's a lot of pressure as well.
Yeah.
In terms of being a talent and having the responsibility to tell that kind of story, can you tell me what that's been like coming into this space and then trying to work more CS events? Because you touched on it a little bit. You did put in the work. You've made 100-page Google Docs.
Yeah.
So trying to be more present in the CS talent space and how you kind of foresee that in your future. Yeah.
Now that you said it, it sounds like I'm just flexing, guys don't.
Sometimes you have to flex.
But I did put in the work. It evolves for sure. I try to find. I feel like what I try to do when I come to this event, because I just feel like I'm just a visitor who wants to do the best, I I have like I try to have negative ego. I try to be very, very positive. I struggle with insomnia, so often I just don't sleep. And in the past, I've noticed that, I would come into a show day and I just like carry that outwardly, like I didn't sleep and it's going to be everybody's problem, and I don't want to do that. I just always want to be a positive spirit, because you never know what anyone is going through in that talent group or in the production group, and they're still coming to work, right? It's because it stops for nobody. It's every weekend, it's every holiday. So I don't want to be the person to make that even worse. I want to make someone's life and someone's workday actively better. And I feel like I've tried to do that at every event that I've gone to, and I've tried to be very productive in, when I tried new things, I'd be like, hey, I've done something like this in the past. Maybe I can take a stab at writing this script for it. If you tell me what you want, and I can help you out, and I can help, maybe we should do it there or there. And then I like it when it's a very collaborative environment. And I hope that I've done that enough so that I am valued in the productions that I've worked with and the talent that I've worked with, that they really like it when I'm there and with the things I offer. Also socially. I really hope that, definitely in terms of wanting to do more CS. But the truth is that, I set my dates and my responsibilities with Riot at the beginning of the year, and it's a lot, and it's the scene that I have to thank so much to, so I never want to be disrespectful to that scene either, And I think it's cool if I know that that's something I do a lot. There's a lot of other projects I'm lucky enough to do, and then that I do get to come in sometimes to the CS events a couple of times a year, and hopefully make the experience of people working with me and watching the show better, and know that I am, my TikTok algorithm is all Vera and all highlights, and then, I watch all the tournaments, and I'm just at home, almost like a proud, friend or sister, and I see them like, yeah, you're killing it. This is so cool, and it's awesome. Yeah.
You touched on it earlier, but there's always a struggle to retain viewership in some of these desk segments and analyst segments and sideline segments. Is there anything that you see in League of Legends that you're trying to bring here, or just in general that you think would help revamp some of these segments? Because at least as someone who's watched a lot of these desks for years, it does get old.
It's true, it does. I mean, I'm on these desks and it gets old. Like sometimes I'm on a desk and I can actively feel that if I was watching, I wouldn't want to watch. And then I get off that desk and I think, damn, we need to do something, right? No matter how it is. And I think there's a lot of context. There's like often, it costs a lot of money to do something different, obviously, but sometimes it doesn't. And we should just be able to step outside of our own comfort zone and out of our own box. Because when I started doing League 12 years ago, it was modeled very much to an American sports broadcast, ESPN type broadcast, which I, from the beginning already didn't like that much, because I felt like in Europe we're a lot more, back then we were like loose, off the cuff, less scripted, trying things, throwing things against the wall. And I think we evolved towards that with the league broadcasts in Europe specifically. But now we've come to this different part of evolution where co-streamers are eating us up, you know? And I have a lot of good friends that co-stream, and then I watch Caedrel and I'm like, okay, this is fantastic to watch. But I also am someone who likes to watch desks because of my professional affiliation. But a lot of people I talk to also, they say, you are the people that for the last 7 years on a Friday evening or a Saturday night I've put on, and you're like, I used to listen to radio and now I listen to you guys on the desk, and that's like coming home. And I was like, whoa, even though the space is changing, there are a lot of people that still very much appreciate and watch the traditional broadcast, because we also give things and access in interviews that you can't really get on other streams, right? But you're right in that I think very actively about changing things up. I mean, I think ESL Pro League is a great example of how things should be done, I think, going forward. I don't know if you'd always do it that way, if then people would get tired of it, probably. But I think that's something I think that I would really like to do in all the desks that I'm on, get away from just standing behind that desk as the talking heads. Maybe it's as simple as moving location and being on the stage or being in the crowd, or mixing it up and, players there, come in here, and it doesn't have to be clean. Like, I really don't like things being super, super clean. Like, oh no, we need a graphic because someone's coming in and we need to put the headset on and we can't hear it and we can't see. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
It's much better that way. It's much more organic because that's the way we've always been. We've not been, Major League Baseball or Premier League football where the stars are so unattainable that you don't ever know what they're thinking except when they're in a super vetted press interview. Yeah. No, our players have such a true connection with the viewers. That's what we want to tap into. I could talk about this for hours, but obviously I'm not the director or the producer, right? So I can't make those decisions, but I felt more empowered in the last couple of years to speak on that and speak to the things respectfully that I think would work because we're very close to the community still. And I think sometimes people much higher up that make the decisions, they just aren't due to the nature of what they have to deal with, which is not my realm. I don't have to deal with getting the brand sponsorships in, but I do deal with the viewers on a one-to-one basis. And I think that's valuable.
When you say that you've been able to do that more recently, do you mean League, CS, both?
I think in both, it's been a journey for me, for sure. I think I felt a little bit like a caged bird in the beginning of my career, but as someone in their 20s, and I'm also a woman in their 20s, trying to just figure things out and how much you're changing yourself as a person, and you're trying to figure out your career and how it's going and what's important and what isn't. There's more than enough to think about. And also, I think early in my career, I often thought, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to upset the apple cart because I should be so lucky to be here. I'm just going to work, keep my head down. It's never too much. Every weekend, that's fine. Flying there and doing a show the next day, that's fine. And then, I have an idea, but and now I just feel like I can't not say it. It's almost an affliction. I talk to Sponge about this a lot because he's also the same. He's like, that segment, this would have been better. And I'm like, yeah, let's say something. And then sometimes he's like, I don't want to, let's just leave it. And then sometimes he's like, nah, let's say something. But it's all about how you say it, right? Mm-hmm. And I definitely feel, I know some producers that hate to see me coming because I'll be like, listen, that thing we did, could we do it like this next time? Can we try? And I said, I'll do the work. And I'll suck it up if it was bad, but I'd like to try it because I'd rather try it than do the same thing 17 times over because I wouldn't want to watch the same thing 17 times over. And I'm sure people sometimes don't like it, but you know what? At my age and in my career, you don't all have to like me, but I would like the product to be as good as it can be and do everything I can to make it as such.
Turning it back to CS a little bit, is there an event we're going to see you at soon? Because,
yes,
we have a pretty big calendar, pretty packed calendar coming up.
There's an event you'll see me at soon.
Okay, no leaks yet.
You know how it is what do you think about talent announcements? So I think they can be a thing of the past. I think for the HLTV Awards, it's different because it happens once a year and it's, but how many events do we have in a year? And I will say, I think it's still very important, because some people, maybe it's their first event or maybe, I think that's dope. And I think we should move away from don't say anything until the 22nd of February when we all announce everybody and be like, hey, here's graphics we made for everybody. If you would like to announce that you were at this event, you can do so from this date, but we won't be sending out a big talent announcement because they always turn into Reddit threads of flame.
Why did this person not get hired?
Time.
Why did this person get hired?
There's nothing wrong with that because people have their preferences, but I think why? Should be
a thing of the past.
You agree?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not the only one.
We write the news for those talent announcemements and it's just, kind of what's the point a lot of the time. And I know that some talent like Sponge and others will just say, if they're unconfirmed, they're like, I'll be here this weekend.
I'll be on. And the people that follow you will know to follow. Mm-hmm. And the people that watch will maybe discover new people and then go follow you. And then there's a little less negativity. But freedom of speech, it's all good. I just think, especially because you'll be preparing and then you'll be like, I'm getting ready for an event. And then there's only, right now there's only one big event that's coming up in the beginning of the year that everyone's going to be at, right? Or that everyone would like to work at. So isn't it good to build hype for that before it happens?
Mm-hmm. So we might see you at a big event sometime in the new year that
always
soon.
Happens really early on.
That always happens.
And that's maybe.
And lastly, just in terms of now being in the space, because you have worked a few events and now you're at the award show, being able to come here and then, regularly dip your toes in and be able to spend the time with all the other talent here, how do you look towards the rest of the year with being able to go to some more of these events and
awesome.
Be able to integrate fully?
It's so awesome. I really miss it. I think I have a lot of great friends and colleagues in league, but I think since the system is a little bit different, you don't get as much, I think, social time anymore. And when it does happen, I think it's a very important aspect of kind of the scene and covering it, that you get to feel like you're in this thing together and you get to see each other and hang out and explore a city maybe and get those experiences in there. I think it's very, very awesome. And we get to do it in league a few times a year when we go, somewhere else for a big event. And in CS, it's the same, there's nothing like working this 2-week insane event with these long days with the same people and you're just trying to get it done and then you get it done. It's awesome and everybody's always so kind and so nice, which I really appreciated, and they know how to party and I'm looking forward to dancing the night away tonight. That'll be awesome, but just looking forward to being at these events this year and just creating awesome CS stories, because CS, like every tournament is a clean slate, The number one team might just drop out in the group stage. And then the story could just be insane within the match, within the best of 3 or hopefully the best of 5. I mean, I don't know, I say that, but then, it's forever the thing. I'd love best of 5s, but then what if it's 5 games and they're all super long, But anyways, it's all super, super exciting. And I can't wait to be back. I'm really happy that I get to be here to get like the tasting menu of everything that's to come, Yeah.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank
I
you.
personally can't wait to see the laser saxophone guy.
What?
There was a guy with lasers on his saxophone last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Personally can't wait.
No, okay, I guess I'll meet him.